Hi everyone, I'm Linda Rourke. Larry Deani will have For the Record next. And then coming up on Hamilton Life, we're all about gardening. We're going to show you how to make an herb garden. We're also going to get you ready to start pruning those perennials. Jackie's going to be whipping up a royal drink at Dundurn Castle, as well as cooking with water buffalo. Yes, that's all coming up on Hamilton Life. But first, here is For the Record with Larry Deani.
Well, thank you very much, Linda. I am Larry Deani, and this is the Tuesday, April 26th edition of For the Record. And on today's show, Jazz in the Hubs returns, debating the debates, and trash talk at City Hall. All that and more on this, the Opinionators edition of For the Record. Let's meet today's panel, and our two regulars are here. The man behind the Festival of Friends, Lauren Lieberman, Power Group Communications President and Queen of all social media, Laura Babcock, and joining them this week, Tara Cugnale, businesswoman and former PC candidate in Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Because of the reductions, the blue box, the green box being ramped up, people aren't producing the same amounts of garbage, the one bag limit. So the idea is to pick up every 2 weeks for garbage. The real benefits of that for the city is anywhere from a 1.8 to about a $2.9 million saving per year, picking up once every 2 weeks instead of weekly, as well as the trucks not being on the road as often, greenhouse gas emissions reduced, and people probably continuing to reduce their garbage even more. So I thought it was a win-win scenario, and I'm certainly going to be speaking to that issue at Council this coming Wednesday.
That's right, because panel, the Public Works Committee at City Hall shelved the idea of bi-weekly garbage pickup, but at least two councillors are going to try to revive it at tomorrow night's council meeting. That was Councillor McCaddy, who told FTR just this past week that this is what he was going to do. And of course, Ward 13 Councillor Russ Powers wants to do the same thing. And this morning we heard Councillor Lloyd Ferguson of Ward 12 telling CHML's Bill Kelly that he may support referring the issue back to the city for further investigation. And everybody else is weighing in as well. In the opinion piece last week, The Spectator's Howard Elliott summed it up this way, and we're going to put it on the screen. He says, this decision doesn't show environmental leadership, it's not the best economic option, it's not evidence of a council looking ahead, as well as at the present, it's political, plain and simple. Opinionators, two questions. What should council do with this idea? And maybe more to the point, what will they do with this idea? Tara, let's start with you.
Well, Larry, I get to take out the trash in two municipalities, both in Hamilton and in Oakville. And let me tell you, out in Oakville, we get trash pickup every 2 weeks, recycling and green bin every week. And it isn't fun to wait 2 weeks to put out your garbage. And remember, if you wake up late and you hear that garbage truck go by, you have a month's worth of garbage by the end of it. It comes every 2 weeks, you miss it, that's 1 month of garbage. It's supposed to get people to recycle more, to use their green bins more, but I think that in Hamilton we're already showing that we're becoming more aware of what we're throwing out in the garbage. We've got a 1 container limit right now. I'd say stick with it. I don't think that the $1.5 million that they're going to save by going to 2 week garbage pickup is going to be given back to me through my property taxes. It'll probably be wasted somewhere else in bureaucracy, so let me have my weekly pickup.
Well, I think it's an idea that we have to look at going forward. Can we make the decision in time for the vote, which is this week? I don't think there's sufficient information at the table, but I am encouraged that councillors who initially had a knee-jerk reaction against it, citing reduced service levels, are saying, okay, you know, let's, maybe I'm open-minded to the feedback that I've received. That's good when our representative leaders, our politicians, listen to the feedback that we give them and are keeping an open mind. So they should get more information. They should deal with all of the sub-issues to this, one of them being what to do with people who dispose of diapers. And I have 2 kids under 2 years old, so let me tell you, diapers is an issue in our house. We need to find out answers to these different elements. I don't think, though, given the city's tough waste diversion targets, and we haven't hit those yet, that they should be off the table forever. But to Tara's point, we've already made some major changes in terms of our limits, etc., with garbage, and this is an issue that people get fired up about because it does impact our quality of life immediately. So I think that It's not going to pass this week. It maybe shouldn't pass this week, but let's get back to it. Let's look at it again in future years with council, because it's somewhere that I think we need to head for the cost saving and the environmental impact going forward.
This has been, I listened to Councillor Powers spinning this as necessary because of such a wonderful compliance rate amongst Hamiltonians, that the garbage truck is coming around and picking up virtually nothing from you. So it's not even about the cost savings. It's just, his position was, it just doesn't make any sense. We've got garbage bags that are a quarter full. But that to me just kind of smacks of punishment for good behavior. and that, well, I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me. But I think a lot of this is being missed in terms of that the contract is up. And there's some timelines affixed here. I am under the impression, and if anybody knows better, please correct me, but the municipality of Hamilton has two different, the lower city is looked after internally by city workers, and it's subcontracted on the mountain. And the subcontract private garbage pickup is open to negotiations in terms of how many routes and how often, and there is some dollar saving there. I think that's a really bizarre notion that we have two different garbage suppliers, if in fact what it is I learned is true. And the theory behind it is, should the municipality go on strike, we will still have garbage pickup. And should our waste management private company fall off the rails, we can always have the city workers, because both ways we are paying for enough bodies to do the whole city.
And I think that, and correct my memory on this, but I remember the big Toronto garbage strike, remember that summer? I think we championed the fact that this gave us, as you said, some flexibility, Lauren. But if you look back at every garbage related issue we've had in this city, even in the last 10 years, it galvanizes a lot of public debate. People understand it clearly. It's not one of those nebulous or you know, difficult esoteric issues in politics that you have to wrap your head around sometimes, things like area rating, for instance. This is something simple, straightforward. We all understand it.
Yeah.
We all have strong feelings.
Laura, what do you think?
And it takes a long time to
What do you think
parse it.
council will do tomorrow night? Let's just take
I think that
quick
council is going to decide that they have insufficient information right now to make such a dramatic move, and they need to seek more public input, which I agree with.
Tara
I agree. I think that they're going to have to shelve this, just like they shelved just about everything else.
and Lauren.
Always good to study.
All right, well that warms us up, and we have much more to talk about. So viewers, please stay tuned. The Opinionators will be right back.
Laura Babcock's Hair by Madison Avenue Salon and Spa, 169 Locke Street South. Call 905-527-4080.
And welcome back to the April 26th edition of For the Record. We are talking to our opinionators, and let's meet our panel again. Of course, they are Lauren Lieberman and Laura Babcock, and joining them this week is Tara Crugnale.
Are you agreeing we should be growing hemp again like we did in the war?
I agree with you that marijuana ultimately ought to be made legal.
That's right.
I have no bones about this. Is crazy, the amount of police officers that we're putting in harm's way in terms of grow-ops. We need to do it in stages. We need to decriminalize it, and then we need to start dealing with
Well, wait a minute. It's not criminal.
Well, no, well...
I haven't got a criminal
all right,
record.
Michael. I was trying to be helpful, Michael,
no,
but...
God, should it be?
Well, opinionators, we're talking about the debates, and that certainly was one of the highlights of the Cable 14 all candidates debates last week. We're going to look at a couple more clips in a moment or two, but opinionators, as we head into the home stretch of Vote 2011, what kind of impact do you think these debates have had on the electorate? Laura, your thoughts?
Well, we had the opportunity, of course, of watching them live and then going on and doing a half hour and giving our thoughts. And I wouldn't call that a highlight, Larry. I'd call it a low light. One of the problems with the debates this time around was, I don't know if it's a formatting issue. I never want to blame the format. I think it was a lack of strength of some of the mainstream candidates in these debates who didn't perform very well on you know, there were a couple of people who performed well. Christopherson did generally, and Charlton did, and, you know, a few others. Sweet wasn't too bad, Dean Allison wasn't too bad. But overall, the fringe candidates, the single issue candidates, Marxist-Leninists, and in this case, marijuana, they made their issues so big and they took up so much time that there you have an incumbent who now is part of a party nationally that might actually have some momentum, spending a bunch of time defending a marijuana policy. Yes, sure, marijuana legislation mattered to a lot of us a couple of years ago, but it's not germane to this campaign. So I thought that overall the debates showed the weakness of people more than it showed real strength.
You know, I really have to commend Cable 14 for putting these debates on the air and then letting us opine about them afterwards. Because if it were not for Cable 14, really there was a complete lack of local coverage during this entire election. We've heard all about the main parties throughout Canada, but when it comes to Hamilton and the surrounding area, we haven't heard too much. So for many voters, this was one of the only opportunities that there really was to see the candidates that they had to choose from and to see them in action. And just like Laura was saying, though, it's unfortunate in this style of debate that you don't really get to hear everyone's message very clearly, because there's a lot of shouting. Fringe candidates come out on top because they don't mind looking, you know, like they don't care about anything else except one issue. But then again, this was about the only chance that we had to see them, and they were very informative. And I think that we could really see the NDP come out very strongly, and most of the Liberal candidates really tanked on these debates.
Absolutely.
And of course, we can tell our viewers that you can actually see the debates again on Cogeco on demand or through YouTube. Lauren, what did you think? What impact will they have?
Well, in terms of impact, the only thing I can measure that by is I'm not a cable subscriber, regretfully, so I don't know how often they're being aired or otherwise. But I can tell you that my Facebook and my email account has been inundated with abuse. And that sounds great to me, that those debates.
That's based on our after show comments.
Right, but that people are watching.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
to answer the question, I think it does matter. They are having an impact. And if people are taking the time to hunt me down and let me know how much love they do not have for me, I think it's tremendous.
And on that point, just quickly, Larry, also we set up a hashtag for the first time ever for the Cable 14 debates, because they were live and so was our post show. And we got some traction on the hashtag for the debate. So that again says Twitter was activated. He got Facebook. People are talking about it. I just don't think the performances were that stellar.
Well, we're going to see a couple of more clips, and roll the next one on flyers.
This is the latest flyer that came out from him just before the election.
Excuse me, are we having a discourse between
I
the two?
was going to ask.
It's an open floor.
The rest
Okay,
of
well,
them
first of all, I want to
It's
conclude the discussion
Phil.
on
It's
income
actually-
trust first.
I would like to
Mr.
finish.
Morrison
income-
doesn't
no,
want to
you-
talk about him
well, no.
spending taxpayer
Hey,
money.
you posed
We
something
don't
about
want
the
to talk
NDP.
about you
Talk
spending
about
taxpayer
taxpayer
money
money.
on a
You posed a
partisan
question. Brad, do you
peak.
want to hear an
This
answer?
is in contempt of Parliament.
Just
This
excuse-
is your document.
excuse
is in
me just
contempt
a
of
second.
Parliament.
You wrecked a 30 billion
You're
industry.
in contempt
A
of
question from the Conservative candidate, I'll hear the answer.
Well, first of all, if we want to talk about contempt, here's a flyer that you put in the Stony Creek News, or your riding association, talk about how the Liberals and the NDP voted against all of these things, and there wasn't even a vote in the Parliament because the budget was deferred to the following week. But getting back to income trusts,
Are you going to pay back the taxpayers the money that you stole from them for this partisan ad?
there's nothing stolen. That was a legal ad.
No, it's not legal when you've got your logo in it. The rules are very clear.
Well,
in
first of all, I
Parliament.
can't see what you have in your hand from here.
It's your mailer. Your logo is in it and it's right on the back. No postage required. So the taxpayers are
Well,
paying
number one,
for
I
your
don't know what you have in your hand,
document
Brad,
to
so I
send-
can't respond.
You sent it out to the taxpayers.
I never sent that, or
Yes.
I don't
Oh,
know
you
what I
most
sent
certainly
because my
did.
eyes
It's
aren't that
yours.
good.
Well, opinionators, we saw evidence of Brad Clark on the offensive against Wayne Marston, who was trying to defend his use of some flyers, and Wayne volleying back with his own attack on an ad that Brad had put out. What does that do, opinionators, when viewers at home are watching that sort of interplay?
Not much, I think, because the issue wasn't that substantive. Brad Clark is great at attacks on technicalities. I think it's what he's probably best at. He had a technicality on Wayne about how those were purchased, and Wayne was a bit back on his heels, said a few silly things in the exchange. But I want to hear about the Conservatives and the NDP on the issues that are making this federal election, not on whether or not money was misspent slightly, maybe possibly on some localized flyers back and forth. So while it was an attempt to attack the incumbent, which we didn't see very much of, and as as Tara said earlier, especially not the Liberals. They didn't do a very good job at all of holding the Conservatives and the NDP to account as incumbents, but it wasn't very substantive. In fact, there's one after-show debate that Dave Shuttleworth and Lauren and I got into where I think the fight was much more heated than even that clip was that I just blogged about today and posted on Twitter, because the debates, other than that and what we saw with Baldessaro and Christopherson, there wasn't a lot of intensity. There wasn't a lot of accountability.
Well, I think the use of props in any debate can backfire. We couldn't really see what was on the paper. We had Brad's word for it, and to the defense of Wayne, the incumbent, it's difficult to defend yourself against something that is being waved at you from across the aisle. Did it make a point? Yeah, it made a point, but Brad could have made a better point on attacking Wayne Marston for things that he hasn't done for the community. Also, you saw in that clip, that was a very heated exchange all throughout. You had a lot of candidates trying to get their voices heard, and Michelle Stockard, the Liberal candidate, again, was unheard of.
Yeah.
Stockwell,
my apologies.
Maybe that makes the point. And Lauren?
Yeah, I don't think that was about the flyers as much as it was about the optics of Brad showing who he is and who he will be if he gets elected. In terms of, Brad came out showing everybody this is his style, which is very, very different than Mr. Marsden's. And the issue itself is who paid for what flyer when. Nobody cares about that kind of nonsense anyways. But to see, you know, that notion that if you're fighting for someone, then you're fighting against something, or any kind of crap statement like that. People like aggressive people. People like Christopherson gets reelected because he talks louder and has more passion.
Well, actually, Larry, if I can pick up on something for just one sec, because it was that debate. We did a show afterwards where we pretty much gave that analysis that, as Tara was just saying, there could have been more attacks in terms of work done in the community by the NDP, etc. And, you know, a lot of people apparently watched that in the show because there was some efforts via email the next day to, you know, swamp our phone lines with pro-NDP calls, I think. So, you know, it does show that the debates are having an impact and that people were listening to the analysis, even though I don't think they were, again, great performances. Brad should have saved his firepower for something that meant more.
Well, opinionators, let's broaden out the lens just a little bit and talk about the election generally. It's conceded that the Liberals are struggling, and they're bringing in Sheila Copps to sort of rally the troops. What do you make of that strategy?
Desperate. It feels like desperation. In fact, there were some people who were saying, you know, there was the poll Ipsos read, of course, about the NDP surging in Quebec, and now I guess they're leading all parties in Quebec. And then there was a national surge with the NDP. Pretty exciting stuff in a boring election. This is something that was unexpected. So then there were comments, and I've been tracking it certainly. We will see in the last week how desperate really the Liberals are feeling by what moves they pull out. And so you had Ignatieff saying, oh, the campaign's just begun. Well, actually, no, it hasn't. I know the last week's the most important, but you've been doing this for a while and it hasn't been working. To bring in the big guns of Sheila to fire up the old Liberal powerhouse kind of rhetoric makes it look, once again, like they're grasping at straws. They can't seem to get it done under his leadership.
Star power would have been having Sheila as a candidate.
Right.
But she didn't want anything to do with it. And I think that whenever we see Sheila Copps, we remember that that she was kind of backstabbed within the Liberal ranks many years ago when she lost her seat to Tony Valeri in the redistribution. So it's good to see her back. It's good to see that perhaps some wounds have healed, but it didn't. It's in the last week of the campaign, just like you said, it's a little bit smacks of desperation.
I think it's important to realize how irrelevant you become when you're out of the limelight. And Sheila's not in this community. And it's been a while since she was part of the Liberal powerhouse that is Hamilton. I don't think it makes squat of a difference anymore. Plus, and she wasn't a Hamilton senator to begin with.
Yeah, but it does
well,
show
opinionators, listen, we're running quickly out of time. Let me just weigh in also on the election with just two very quick points, and I'll take a quick reaction from you. And it's about, you know, election stretch surprises. As each of you have said, we're coming down to the stretch. The early narrative about the Ignatieff and Harper showdown has really given way to the NDP surge. And I don't care what anybody says, when polls are showing that he may win 100 seats and he's still climbing according to some polls, we better be getting ready to maybe say Prime Minister Layton, or at the very least official leader of the opposition Layton, and that certainly is a surprise. And locally, the biggest surprise in the debates for me was David Christofferson endorsing the legalization of marijuana and the legalization of grow-ops in the debate and the clip that we just saw. That would have garnered national headlines, certainly local headlines. It received a yawn. So that was a surprise for me as well. Opinionators, what do you think? Were there any other local or national surprises bigger than that?
Well, I think that that wasn't, if it was a couple of years ago, that would have been more newsworthy, but that's not a really big deal. I think the big surprise is seeing how well that the NDP are doing. I think that speaks mostly as an indictment on the leadership of Ignatieff, and that's something that the Liberal Party is going to have to deal with. I've had people tweeting me today, Larry, asking me what I think about a Jack Layton-led coalition. So these are Conservatives. People really believe this is going to happen. It's pretty surprising.
Well, I think that this is good news for the Conservatives because at least it takes some of the heat off of us. If we only had a 2-week election campaign, the Harper Conservatives would have had it hands down a majority. But the longer that we have to play in an election, the more that the opposition can chip away at our support. So to see the Conservatives down and the NDP up, I think that that people that may want to vote Liberal will see that and will vote NDP instead, and perhaps that'll give another balance to the Conservatives. People won't be afraid of voting for the Conservatives.
And Lauren?
Yeah, don't believe the hype. There's no way 100 seats for the NDP. That's not going to happen. Things are certainly looking better for them than they ever have, but all the polls are way out of whack. Those are snapshots in time. For sure, the NDP is doing great where Iggy is doing terrible, but everybody get a grip. Prime Minister Layton, I'm open for wagers. Come on.
At least people trust him and they know him. And one other last surprise quickly, Larry, it's something that I blogged about today, is the narrative through this election that elections themselves are a pain for Canadians and that debates should be tamped down because it's a waste of time. That kind of notion, to me, an insidious narrative that was a big surprise in this campaign. So I said more on that, but that would be my big surprise as well.
Yes, and you made good points about that and the importance of debates in a democracy during the Opinionators segment, which I enjoyed. Opinionators. In fact, I called in at one of them, didn't
right.
I? Opinionators, thank you for your opinions, and we'll see. May the 2nd is quickly coming. Viewers, we have lots more, so please stay tuned. We will be right back.
Larry Deanne's wardrobe, provided by Newman's Menswear. Newman's Menswear, 773 King Street East, 1 block east of Sanford. Parking available behind the store.
And music is in the air for Hamilton Elementary School students with the return of the popular Jazz in the Hubs concerts. And to find out more, we're joined by Astrid Hepner, chair of the Hamilton Music Collective. Welcome to the show, Astrid.
Hello, Larry. Nice to be here.
Well, firstly, tell us what the Hamilton Music Collective is very quickly.
Well, the Hamilton Music Collective is a group of musicians, educators, and people that would like to support music in Hamilton. And well, it's an organization that was formed about 4 years ago. I'm the chair of the organization, and we do all sorts of things. We promote concerts, we produce concerts. A lot of people are aware of the Jazz at the Corktown that we used to do. At the moment, the big band is a bit on a hiatus. We also do educational outreach programs, and that's what Jazz in the Hubs is about.
Well, tell us about Jazz in the Hubs, because anytime you talk about education, of course, it stirs all of us to be supportive, and music education has been threatened in the past, and I know that you're trying to keep it alive and promote it. So tell us about Jazz in the Hubs.
Well, Jazz in the Hubs is something we started 3 years ago. We received funds from the Hamilton Community Foundation, And it's a program that we're doing in partnership with the Moore College Music Program. And the idea is we are bringing the Moore College Student Big Band into inner city elementary schools. And the big band performs for these kids, and these are very interactive performances. So the idea really is to show the instruments of a big band to these kids, to introduce these kids to these instruments. So for example, we have at some point more students will get up and they will walk with the instruments through the audience. They will perform right in front of the children. And then these performances, which last about half an hour, are followed by a so-called Meet the Instrument part, which is the favorite part of the kids, because that's when they actually get to try the instruments. So we have various stations all over the gym, and then every kid will have the opportunity to try trumpets and trombones and to learn about the instruments, to touch the instruments. And this is always very exciting for these kids.
Well, and listen, it sounds like a great program, and we saw the poster on the screen, and the first performance is this Friday, April 29th at Queen Mary Elementary School, and then it goes to May the 2nd, Dr. J. Edgar Davey Elementary, followed by a presentation at Kathy Weaver, our inner city schools, and these kids will benefit. Astrid, good luck with the program. Thank you for telling us about it.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps up this edition of For the Record. Our thanks today go to our opinionators, Lauren Lieberman, Laura Babcock, and Tara Cunale, and of course, Astrid Hepner. And please stay tuned now, because coming up is Linda Rourke and Hamilton Life.